Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Real Life Practice Podcast. I'm Teresa McCloy.
And I'm Lindsay Sturkey, and we are excited to welcome you into our conversation about what it means to practice our faith in our ordinary everyday life. In each season of the podcast, we explore a different spiritual practice together that will help us connect with God and become more of who He has created us to be.
We'll talk about simple spiritual growth, explore our life story, and discover how to pay attention to God in the ordinary and extraordinary moments of our days. And on this season of the Practice podcast, we're actually going to be talking about the practice of slowing and how it helps us to be present to ourselves and to God. And before we dive into the practice we're going to talk about, Lindsay, I would love for you to share with our listeners some of the new vision that we have in 2026 for this particular podcast and other resources that we have out there as well.
So, if you've been listening to this podcast, you may know that typically we've been doing seasons of about 6 episodes, and then we take a break for a little while. We released episodes every other week. So, there's going to be a slight change to that format. We'll still be every other week, but we are not going to break between seasons. We're just going to keep going. And part of the reason for that is you may be familiar with our sister podcast, which is Real Life Conversations for Christian Coaches. And that is hosted by Teresa and Erica Vincent, who is also on our team. And we see these podcasts as very connected and related. While this podcast, the Real Life Practice podcast, really is more about the being and how do you take care of your own self and soul. Real Life Conversations for Christian Coaches is more about the doing, the work
Mhm.
that you do, and even if that's ministry or coaching or however you show up in the world. And we know that our being and our doing are very connected. And so even as they are two separate podcasts, they very much overlap. And so what we are going to start doing is these two podcasts will release on opposite Wednesdays. So last week on Wednesday was a new episode of Real Life Conversations for Christian Coaches. Today, you'll notice we're releasing on a Wednesday is the Real Life Practice podcast. And so every other Wednesday, each podcast episode will release. And so we'll still kind of do seasons with this podcast where we'll pick one practice to focus on for about 4 to 6 episodes. But look for us on Wednesdays. I'd really encourage you to subscribe to both podcasts, and we'll put that info in the show notes. That way you don't miss an episode. I really think you will benefit from both because just as we need to take care of our own self, we also want to talk about how does that impact how we show up in the world. And so every episode will drop on Wednesdays. Subscribe to both and you won't miss out on a thing.
You did that well, friend. My
Oh,
goodness.
thanks.
That was a lot, and you got it all in there. And we are super excited. The being and the doing. We know that most of you listening to this podcast, not all of you, but most of you are showing up in some way, helping others and serving others. So we think you'll enjoy both sides of the coin, so to speak. And this won't change the content, change the day and the time. And thank you for sharing all of that, Lindsay. As we transition, though, let's think about this idea of slowing. I know when I mentioned to you, I really want to dive into this practice because this is very personal for me, I will admit. Slowing has been my journey for the last probably 15, 20 years. To be honest, if I admit, my whole life has been around, can I slow down? I am wired as a very forward moving type. It's why I so lean into having a rule of life process, the process of the real life process that we have created, and that foundational work that we have. The One Life Maps, another one of our foundational tools. Many of you that listen to this podcast found us and know us because of the maps. And all of those tools that have formed me, most of them have really invited me to slow. And even this year, as I ended the year, I was tired and I knew that 2025, I had done too much. And am I capable? Yes. But is it what God is inviting me to? No, not in this season of my life, not in the work that I want to do and the way I want to show up in the world. And so that all led me to, I want to talk about slowing. So many times the practice that you and I choose is because one of us needs that invitation. You've chosen some of our topics, I've chosen some of them, but it usually comes around a desire that we have to lean into that practice. Um, One of the phrases that I've been using is, we don't have to run into 2026, we can walk into it.
Mm.
What comes up for you, Lindsay, when you think of walking into the new year instead of running into it?
I love the way of describing that because often it kind of feels like I crash into the new year. The holidays can be so hectic, and that's why I love that we're talking about the practice of slowing right at the beginning of the year. I can have a tendency to feel all or nothing about it's January 1st, we're going to reset and restart and hit the ground running. And that's just not very realistic, especially coming out of the holidays and then getting back into regular routines and rhythms. My kids are just now going back to school as we record this. And so it does not feel very realistic to hit the ground running and to start off with a bang. That feels like a really quick way to hit a wall, to burn out, and to just feel frustrated and feel like I can't change. I can't grow. This is just who I am now. It's not possible. It's too
Yeah,
hard. Whereas
yeah.
if we take a slow start to the year and say, what is one small step I can take today? What is
Mhm.
one thing I can do? How do I be kind with myself? Give myself grace and time and permission to go at a slower pace and recognize that that is actually more sustainable than trying to do it all from the get go.
I think it's interesting as I reflect on even the month of January. Lindsay and I both live in the Midwest, so there's definitely a huge seasonal outdoor shift in the winter months. And I've always loved January because it's always felt like a big reset month to me. Um, I don't love the pressure of living into, I got to have it all done in December, so I'm ready to hit the ground running in January. January to me is an invitation of cleaning away the Christmas clutter, putting it all away, getting it done in a slow pace, um, resetting my home. I love the invitation to um, clean it out, clear it up, get rid of the clutter, um, do all the things. And sometimes I put out, in fact, this year, last week, I went in and I was in Walmart of all places, and I picked up a dozen white roses. Like I love fresh flowers in my home, but that resetting of, I want white, I want clean, I want, not a lot of color. And white is actually part of this whole season if you follow the church calendar year and all of that. And so I get out a few white and clean things, and it just invites me in my body to start to slow down, let go of the bright and the red and the green and all the things. I know for you, um, we've talked about this before on the podcast. We're very different in even how we're wired, and we're different in our seasons of life. But when you think about slowing down, even in your environment, um, what is that for you? Because you're in a totally different place in your personality too.
I think when I consider what it looks like to slow down, it really is about slowing down on the inside for me
Mhm.
to release the pressure that I have to get everything done, get everything in order, that it has to be done perfectly. Because even though I am maybe drawn to the more slow and reflective spaces, I still can put on that internal pressure of what do I need to do to get my life together? Um, and thinking that inner peace can only come when things are put together and
Yeah,
done.
when external is put
Yes.
together, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's letting go of that expectation of I can be at peace on the inside, even when on the outside things are left undone, things are chaotic, because I don't enter the new year from a place of everything is just settled now, and it's still pretty chaotic. But I feel that desire for that slowness. And so how do I give myself that space in the midst of the chaos?
Yeah. And I think the season that you're in, just because we know each other well, like you just got home from like Christmas travel and you travel to Virginia to see your parents and do all of that. And many of our listeners, you may be the same, whether you're traveling with a family or you're traveling because you're the grandparents and you went to see people, you're just coming home and kind of exhaling and saying, yeah, I want to walk in, not run in. So maybe for you, January represents a reset month. I love the word of reset, but it doesn't mean I'm going to reset it in the next 48 hours and, 72 hours and I'm going to be ready to go and I have all my plans. It's like, no, I'm going to sit with God, open my hands, and He's going to invite me to slow um, in that way. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about this for several episodes, but in this episode, let's define for sure what is slowing. You know, what would we say? How would we define that?
So I love always referencing Adele Calhoun's Spiritual
Hmm.
Disciplines Handbook. That's one of our go-to resources. Check that out if you haven't. And I love how she says that really the desire for slowness comes from curbing my addiction to busyness, hurry, and workaholism, and that it's learning to savor the moment. And so here at the Real Life Process, we talk a lot about learning to live from rest, not rush. And so when I think about the practice of slowing, it is deliberately resisting the tendency to rush through my days, through my life, through my projects, whatever it is that's in front of me. I am saying I am choosing slowness instead of pushing to get it done.
So, Lindsay, what I think of, even as we think about what does God say about this, there's scripture references, and we'll get into more of those in upcoming episodes. But one that always stands out is the be still and know that I am God. My word for the year this year is quiet trust, that invitation to be quiet and still and trust God for his provision. But how would this look like in practice?
So, just a few tangible examples of what this could look like for us to slow down. One really practical, what if you drive in the slow lane when you are on your commute? Again, that might
What?
feel unspiritual, but there's something about deliberately choosing the slower lane or the longer line in the store that makes us aware of how rushed we are on the inside. Maybe it is speaking more slowly. This can be a
Mhm.
challenge for me sometimes when I, in conversation, get excited about something. I can tend to talk really fast. And so, what does it look like to just deliberately slow down as you're talking to somebody? Looking people in the eyes when you're talking to them is another huge one. We can get distracted or look around for what else is going on, or we get a ping on our phone. And so we want to pull that up. But what does it look like to really be present with someone? Look them in the eyes as we're talking to them. Maybe when you have a meeting, you plan more buffer time in between. So you're not rushing from one thing to the next. So these are just some really tangible examples that we'll explore more as we get into future episodes. But I want to encourage you between now and the next episode, maybe a good practice is just to notice the moments that you are rushing without judgment. We're not shaming ourselves or feeling guilty, but we're just noticing what are the times in my day that I feel really rushed and what might be the invitation to slow down. And so that's our challenge to you in the next couple weeks is just notice what are the moments in my day when I am feeling rushed.
I'm excited to get into this and know that I need it. Everything that you named, fast lane, buffer time, all those things are things I need to lean into. So I'm excited to journey together with Slowing.
Absolutely. Well, as we come to the end of the episode, we just want to point you to a couple of additional resources. For every season, we create a free download that is kind of a companion to the season that gives you some tools and ideas of how you can actually put this practice into practice in your everyday life. And so make sure you check out the show notes to download our guide to slowing. And also, we are super excited to announce that one of our signature tools of One Life Maps, which many of you are familiar with, it is a tool to help you recognize and respond to God in your story. we are thrilled to announce that these are now available digitally. So this is going to make it easier for you to access them and use them. If you go to onelifemaps.com, you'll find all the information, but there's an option for an individual download. So if you are using this in your own personal growth, you can purchase the individual download and use it for yourself. Or if you use this tool in your work or ministry with others, we have a subscription option that is going to make it even easier for you to use this with others. With an active subscription, you have those tools at your disposal. And so all of the information for that is at onelifemaps.com. Check that out. We're super excited to make that available, and we'll share more in the weeks ahead, but that is available for you now.
So excited about that tool and the journey that we've been on over the last 3 or 4 years to get that to a place that we can make it a digital product. So we hope you'll check it out. And we also hope you'll join us next time as we continue to listen to Jesus's invitation to slowing. And I truly believe that the practice of slowing is part of the unforced rhythms of grace in our everyday, ordinary life. So we'll be back in 2 weeks to share more with you.